Hi, I hope you're doing well. I'm back again, and what I wanted to talk about today is ectopic pregnancy, miscarriage, and the toll it takes on women. The reason I chose to talk about this is because I have been through this. In 2015, I was pregnant for the first time. Unfortunately, it ended up being an ectopic, and it was scary. It was nerve wracking. It was distressing. It was depressing. And it was everything that I could have imagined or imagined the worst to be. And while I share this, the reason why I'm sharing this today is because a lot of the times, us women, we don't share these personal crises with others. We forget about, we tend to make ourselves an island in moments of crisis, and just we wonder that whether we can get through this by ourselves, whether our support system or the people we know will judge us. We are always afraid of judgment. We are afraid of under delivering. We are afraid of, I guess that's pretty much it, under delivering and failing to our own expectations. For whatever reason, we do. It becomes a very consuming mechanism to feel like a failure when it is really just a biological thing. So I just wanted to share what I went through and how I came to accept it. That this was my reality, and what the future held would also be my reality. So we'd been trying for a while, and I conceived, and then as soon as I found out, coincidentally, we were planning a trip to. We were going to Puerto Vallarta in Mexico in 2015, and when we landed there, we were still excited. The news or the strip test had confirmed it, but I hadn't gone to the hospital yet to get a blood work done or a urine work done. So with that excitement, we did go, and first day was fantastic, and then the second day approached. It was a 4-day vacation, and then the second day, I started to see some spotting. I was concerned, and I was hoping it was just gonna go away. It was nothing, not a big deal. None of it stopped, and it just kept staying the same way. And then, of course, you're in a foreign land, you don't know the language, and you're experiencing something so personal, and you're scared about what's happening. So that really shook me, and as well as my husband. We approached the the hotel's main desk, and sought help there. Luckily, the people at the hotel had a good infrastructure. They took us to a expat hospital where, again, communication was a big issue. So while I was all nervous about the whole experience, it was even more overwhelming because I couldn't talk. I couldn't. And I, I was just hoping that this was just a bad dream. It was a nightmare and would go away, and all of those things. And there was no one near me other than my husband, and I couldn't cry because I just wanted to hold on to that hope. They, after a whole day of testing and whatever, they told me that this was an ectopic because the HCG levels were really low, not what would be expected for that stage of pregnancy. So 3 days later, we packed our bags, came back, and the first thing we did was go to see an OBGYN at Santa Clara Hospital in California. There again, I couldn't find my OBGYN. I ended up with a male OBGYN who seemed rather awkward. It was a very personal crisis, but the fact that he was male and the fact that he seemed a bit dismissive or just wanting to get going with his appointments did not help. But why am I adding these small details? The reason why I'm adding these small details is to inform or share how things that are otherwise just in passing, they become bigger and bigger when you are at a moment of crisis, and we forget to identify them and deal with them in a certain way. We forget to acknowledge them. So I want to be able to acknowledge them as I talk to you today. Um, and So again, the same diagnosis was made that this was an ectopic, and I had to get rid of. We had to go through the um, getting rid of the fetus because, um, of course, it was a risk to my health. I couldn't believe it. I was administered what is I forget the drug's name, but I feel like it was dexamethasone. I'm not sure. Please don't quote me on that. But I was given drug that would essentially kill the fetus, and I was asked to avoid certain types of food and make sure that I come in for tests every day and check how the blood work is going, if the levels are going down, if things are happening. And there was the medical part, but then the physical part, the emotional part. The physical part was painful, but the emotional part, the scarring it left, I cannot fathom that. But we had to go through it to look forward, and we went through it. Unfortunately, the first attempt failed, so I had to go through this process again, which was disastrous. And then as I was going through it, I just needed support. I would call and cry and talk to my family, talk to one of our cousins, and just bleed my heart out. And it took almost 4 months for my body to heal itself from the first time we found out. And that was the physical 4 months. But then came the next 4 months where I began to accept that this had happened to me, and I started to share my story with my extended friends in my social circle. And I understood and I accepted that if I was to get pregnant again, then maybe it was a sign, and if it wasn't, then it wasn't meant to be. I accepted that wholeheartedly at that point. And to give you a timeline, the first time we weren't diagnosed. And the first time the test came positive for pregnancy was in early May. And by the time my body seemed to heal itself, it was the end of September. And by the time I actually accepted that this was my fate, it was my destiny, it was supposed to happen, perhaps to lead to something else, it was November. But I did, and I shared my story with my close circle of friends. And you know what I found out? I found out that, let's say, of 10 of my friends, at least 7 of them had gone through this in some version. Either it was ectopic, it was miscarriage, or it had happened once, maybe even twice for some couples. And it was amazing to know that none of us knew about each other's accidents. None of us knew about what we all had gone through, and nobody was wanting to talk about it. And I was just amazed. And then I read the statistics, and it said 50% of first pregnancies are, and actually 70% of first pregnancies are miscarriages. I realized that I wasn't alone in this journey. There were so many other women who were with me along this journey, and that the embracing part of the pain, the acceptance, the recognition of this emotional strength that I gained. Perhaps I had some baggage as well, which we'll talk about eventually, but generally just realizing that I wasn't alone was the biggest healing that I could have had. And this was the reason why from then on, anytime I talk to new people, meeting new people, just trying to gather a social connect, I never hesitated to share that this was my past. not because I was not afraid of being judged, but I was just willing to overshare in the sense of sharing the moments because I wanted people to understand. I wanted women to empathize with themselves. The empathy that we need for ourselves had to start in at least for the people that I loved and I knew and I cared for. I wanted that for all the support that all my friends, my social circle gave me. I wanted to do that for others. That's how I started. I started talking about it at work with all my female coworkers. I started talking about it in new acquaintances. And believe me, it has been such a healing process, not only for me, but it has also helped a lot of women. It has helped a lot of my friends because even before they were in the onset of the journey, they knew this was a thing. It's the emotional hurt is huge, but the thought that you're not alone makes it a lot easier. The fact that it's not your fault, to recognize that it's not your fault, makes it a lot easier. To not judge yourself for what has happened makes it a lot easier to pass through the time and prepare yourself for the next. None of us are invincible. We all need help. We all need help. We all need support, and we need all the love that we can give to each other and love ourselves. So that's my story for today. Bye bye.